So let's take a little step back from things and bring in Marwan Bishara, our senior political analyst, to I want you to try to tie all this together for me, Marwan. The importance of what we see, and I've said this to our guests already, the importance of the army chief stepping in, because in any situation we've seen like this in the Arab world since 2011, we always keep one eye on the army, don't we?
Yes. And I think your earlier guest made some good points, talking about that the army, it seems, is going about it constitutionally, asking a constitutional move, invoking a constitutional element in order to deal with a very particular case of political paralysis, national paralysis within the country. Even going further, here maybe we'll start our disagreement about how the military is so professional and so on and so forth. Now, I personally don't know of a case in the Arab world, and I will be happy to be corrected, where the army has stepped in and then stepped out on its own. I don't know, with maybe a couple of exceptions, in the developing world, an army stepping in and paving the way for elections and just stepping out for the good of its heart. In Thailand, they sort of step in and out of the front, of the vitrine, as it was called, of the window dressing, but they remain present, and that's why they are able then to return once again and intervene. So I don't know in the Arab world where an army have stepped in and stepped back because, you know, now that its job is done and democracy is flourishing. That does not happen. That's one. Two, I think there is a very particular case in Algeria. And as I said earlier, all of that is now, for now, is theoretical. Back to your question that you just posed about, but isn't he speaking in the name of, you know, saying that the people have spoken and why is not delivered? That reminds me exactly what Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said about the people stepping down to the street in June, and he threatening President Morsi, elected President Morsi, by saying the people in the streets are calling for your removal, you need to clean up your act, otherwise, well, we know what otherwise is, right? Yeah. He stepped in and he did not fulfill the will of the people. He became one of the worst dictators in today's world. Dictator Abdel Fattah al-Sisi basically has been ruling since 2013, 6 years. He's just now going to, he changed the constitution in order to rule until, what, 2033? That's what happens when the army steps in. Now, is Algeria different? I hope so. I hope Algeria is different. I was just about to say, isn't Algeria different in the sense that there's not a Sisi figure there? This is the head of the army we are looking at. But does he have any great ambitions, do you think? Well, actually, until last night, I was listening to Algerian commentators speaking about how Saleh Qaid would never betray Abdelaziz Bouteflika, because Abdelaziz Bouteflika brought him from obscurity when he was basically no one and put him to be the chief of the army, relied on him over the last several years. In fact, you know, since Bouteflika stepped in, what, 20 years ago to be president, basically taking the country, you know, the country was already out of the civil war, but basically taking it on a new road towards more peacefulness, stability, and so on and so forth. And Saleh Qaid, the military chief, was with him. And that's why many people thought that he would never stab, as it were, the president in the back. Now, is this not stabbing the president in the back, but he's just actually doing his job, saying, look, I love the president, but the president is no longer able to carry his duties, and that's why the parliament needs to step in, or the constitutional council.
You say no longer. With respect to a sitting president, we look at the pictures of him. In fact, there he is right now, sitting in a wheelchair. He had a stroke, what was it, 5 or 6 years ago or something. Arguably, he has not been able to discharge his duties for a very long time, and only now we see the army saying, oh, we should go for Article 102 because he's unable to discharge his duties.
Okay, so there's a number of issues about that. One, even if he was healthy, why should he be running under the shadow of the army for a 5th term? I mean, enough is enough. You know, basically the country wants fresh, new leadership. Two, he basically presented his candidacy through someone else when he was in the hospital in Geneva. So he couldn't even come in and be present in Algeria when presenting his candidacy for election to the 5th term. Third, according to Lakhdar Ibrahimi, who is, of course, a former foreign minister of Algeria and became a renowned international diplomat, special envoy to Afghanistan, to Syria, and so on and so forth, who's a good friend of Bouteflika. And we saw his pictures only 2 weeks ago when he was presumed to be heading the new national dialogue under Bouteflika, announced, what, March 14 or the likes. He said that Bouteflika, in fact, can hear you. He said he can hear you, but you can't hear him. That he can't speak loud enough. Basically, he was describing what an invalid would be for a president, and that's a shameful thing for a country whose more than half of its population is under the age of 30.
OK, Marwan, thanks for now. Stay there. We'll come back to you a little bit later on.